Alright, guys, we gotta talk about Xbox here today. Because, hot off the heels of Nintendo going down this road, Xbox has now announced that they are going to start pricing at least some of their first party games at $80 starting this holiday season. And alongside this, they also announced some wide sweeping hardware price increases as well. Now, as for the hardware side, this isn't something that's out of left field. Xbox already increased their prices of their hardware in some other countries. Let's see, when was it? 2022, I want to say, or 2023, somewhere in there. A few years ago, they've already jacked the prices of these things up once. Now, that first price hike did not affect the US, while this one is. So, this is the first domestic price increase, which I'll throw up a screenshot of the US price increases, and I'll have a link in the description to a True Achievements article that has the prices for the UK, Europe, and Australia, since all those countries are getting price increases as well. But as for the Xbox Series consoles in the US, at least, they are all increasing in prices anywhere from the range of $80 all the way up to $130 for the 2 terabytes model of the Xbox Series X, with just the standard 1 terabyte Series X model going up by $100 all the way to $600. So, some pretty steep price increases. The increases for other countries aren't as bad, but they are going up a pretty significant amount. Now, for comparison's sake, Sony also recently just increased their prices in certain countries for the PlayStation 5. Now, this price increase did not hit the US yet, so they're all still $500, for the base model over here. But this is not the first time that PlayStation has increased their PS5 prices either. I can't remember exactly when they happened. It was a few years ago, I want to say. But yeah, this is at least the second time that Sony has upped some of their prices, and I want to say the second or third time that Microsoft has upped theirs, though it is the first time that it is hitting the US as far as hardware goes. Now, I've already lost enough brain cells today reading through comment sections of people arguing over the cause of this, so I have no interest into getting into any arguments on that end. People are going to blame Nintendo, people are going to blame inflation, the big bad orange man, oh my god. Whatever the cause, I have no interest in talking about that. I'm going to talk more about the effects that this is going to have. Which, as for me personally, my position remains the same. I am not willing to pay $70 for a new modern standard edition game, and I'm certainly not willing to pay $80. I said this, in my recent Nintendo Switch 2 reveal video. I'm not paying $80 for a game. I don't give a fuck what it is. Now, Nintendo raising some of their first party stuff to $80 is personally more annoying to me than Xbox, mostly because Xbox just doesn't have a lot of really good first party stuff at this point, let's be honest. So, just as far as my personal interests go, it isn't going to affect me as hard anyway. And of course, both Xbox and PlayStation are a lot more willing to lower their game prices over time than Nintendo is. So that shouldn't be as much of an issue either. Now, as for the hardware, I do not own an Xbox Series X yet. I was planning on eventually getting one at some point when I was able to find one on a good sale. So I was already not wanting to spend the $500 for one, and I am absolutely not going to be spending $600 for one either. So I'm pretty much in the same boat I was already in on that, as far as I'm just waiting for a good sale. I guess I'm waiting for an even better sale now. But yeah, I'm not spending $600 for, 5-year-old hardware at this point. That's fucking crazy. So I'm not going to be spending those prices. It does make things a bit more difficult to try to get them, but I'll figure out something, I guess, eventually. Which I'm not totally shocked that a price increase like this would happen for the hardware or for the games. Like I said, we've already seen price increases for the hardware in other regions, so it hitting the US isn't something that's, absolutely mind-blowing or anything, although it is a crock of shit. But as far as the game prices going up, I said in my Nintendo Switch 2 video that, if Nintendo got away with this, then everyone else was going to follow suit too. But Xbox didn't even wait for Nintendo to get away with it. They just decided to go ahead and roll right on. So I certainly wasn't expecting a price increase this soon, if nothing else. So, of course, now the question becomes, are people going to be willing to pay these sort of prices? Because if you increase any price higher than the market value, then it's just not going to sell. If people are not willing to pay these prices, they're going to have to eventually lower them. So the question becomes, are people willing to pay these prices? Which, my expectations for the average consumer are pretty much in the dirt after all the things I've seen companies get away with over the last few years, especially in the gaming area. So I would hope that people wouldn't be willing to do that, but nothing shocks me at this point. Now, Nintendo could probably get away with it easier than Xbox, since Nintendo, I think, has a much more dedicated fan base. On the Xbox side, their console sales were already not exactly lighting the world on fire. So, of course, these price increases aren't going to help anything in that regard. Which, honestly, this whole thing does bring into question the future of Xbox as a hardware platform to me. Which, I know they keep talking about how they still care a lot about hardware and they're already working on their next-gen console, and there's been rumors about an Xbox handheld, or at least an Xbox branded handheld from like ASUS or whatever. But their words aren't really lining up with their actions in regards to a lot of this. Since, Microsoft has really heavily been promoting the whole Game Pass and cloud streaming thing. They're pushing that thing about how, any screen can be an Xbox now because you can stream your games on your phone or on your PC or on whatever the fuck. Smart TV, all these different devices you can cloud stream from now. So I think they're really heavily pushing that. And of course the Game Pass subscriptions and all that nonsense. So that, combined with the fact that they're porting a lot of their first party stuff to other platforms now, we got fucking Forza on PS5 at this point. It really makes me question whether they actually think hardware is going to be a big part of Xbox going forward. I could see them completely just converting Xbox into more like a program that you just have on, other systems or other devices or whatever, that you can play your games through, maybe making it more similar to a client like Steam or something. Which, they might go that route. I know, Xbox really hasn't had any true console exclusives in a while. They've been releasing all their first party stuff, at least on PC, for a long time now. And now that they've completely given up and are porting it to other consoles too, it really wouldn't surprise me if they decide to go that route. Which, if that is ultimately their plan, a decrease in hardware sales from a price increase could be another justification to try to go that path. So maybe they're playing the long game here. Ultimately, if they do decide to go that route, then it's going to be a lot more anti-consumer than it is now, since they'll probably go completely all digital, which means, prices will be completely under their control. So complaining about the $80 games, they could jack them up even higher. If that becomes the only place that you can get those games from, they eliminate any competition, which means they could, significantly cut back on the frequency or the value that you get from sales. And ultimately, that's just not going to lead anywhere good. So I hope they don't go that route, just because, me personally, I'm always a physical collector and I love my physical copies. So if they do go some sort of all digital cloud streaming bullshit nonsense, I'll just be done with Xbox at that point. It's no big deal to me, honestly. Which, to anyone who actually already doesn't have an investment in the Xbox ecosystem, it's kind of hard to recommend them at this point anyway. Since, like I said, there aren't really any exclusives over there that you can't also get on PC or even on other consoles now. So, if you're already invested in, like, the PlayStation or Nintendo ecosystems, there isn't really much advantage to switching to Xbox. I know people like to, cock gobble Game Pass all the time, but Game Pass is a bunch of horseshit. I stand by that. It's a glorified rental service. You own nothing. It is a ripoff. So you're not going to get any love from me over your subscription nonsense. But regardless of which path Xbox takes for future generations, as far as this generation goes, I am going to be interested to see how sales are impacted by this. Like I said, I would hope that people don't buy into this, since really that would solve a lot of problems in gaming if people could just stop buying the bullshit. Then they would have to change course on a lot of this. People mouth about microtransactions and, pay to win stuff and DLC out the ass and overpriced games and all this nonsense. But all this nonsense keeps happening because it's profitable. People keep buying into it. You have to stop buying the shit. I made the same speech when the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced. You have to stop. If you stop, then they will stop. But as long as they're making money off of this, then they have no incentive not to. So my hope is that these prices are past that market value, that people are willing to pay for this, and it actually does result in a decrease in sales for Microsoft. So hopefully at some point they decide to start clawing this back. Which I know people are blaming Nintendo for this, which I'm sure Nintendo, being the first to jump to that $80 mark was absolutely some green lights for Microsoft to do so as well. But make no mistake about it, this is something that they've wanted to do for a long time. And I think they're just using this as an excuse to finally take that step and do it now. One thing I think a lot of these gaming companies need to realize, that you're dealing with luxury products here. No one needs a video game. And when you're dealing with something like that, I think people really need to understand that a lot of people out there, a lot of gamers, myself especially, are tits deep in a backlog at any given point, and are in a position where we could go usually multiple years without buying anything new and still have new shit to play. And that's really not a good position that you want to be in when you're trying to sell new games to people. So pricing people out of the market and, just jacking your prices up to these insane amounts, I don't think it's going to turn out like they're hoping it is. And they really just need to realize that all these game companies are not necessary at this point. We do not need you. There is more good games than a person could possibly play in an entire lifetime already out there. And there's a multitude of ways to access them. So we don't need new games. We don't have to deal with these terrible prices. Yes, some people will give in to FOMO and buy into it, or some people that are more casual and maybe only buy 1 or 2 games a year anyway, maybe they don't scoff so much at a price increase like this. But your more dedicated gamers that buy a lot of games, that are really into this, we're already pretty much stockpiled and able to go a long time without having to deal with this. And I think we can outlast them a lot easier than they can outlast us. So we'll see how this goes. I hope people don't buy into it. Like I said, I'm personally definitely not going to be buying into it. I didn't want to pay the $500 for a Series X. I'm certainly not paying $600. And I absolutely refuse to pay $80 for any kind of game, especially an Xbox one at this point. But anyway, I guess that's all I got to say. So lots of luck to you and yours.